it was also shocking, when those assassinations happened, one after another. I was actually there. I remember I was at the church there for the funeral. Later on, I don't know, in the memoir, I actually get to know Caroline Kennedy and Moynihan's, Rockefeller's, like different people at Harvard that were there, which was what I was, aiming towards. I felt like this is it. This is where I gotta be. This is where power is and decisions are made, and this is where the height of wisdom must be at Harvard. It's like the biggest thing. So when I started learning about everything, I worked hard and I got it into Harvard, and it was interesting to meet all those people because they're searching too. It's not like they're it. I talk about this in the book about a garden party, exclusive garden party I got invited to, where all these famous people, and they're looking beyond also for something more. Like there's really nothing up there where we're all striving to be. It's a mirage.
Welcome to the Paul Croswell audio experience.
Hello and welcome back to the show. This is your host, Paul Croswell, and I am glad you're here. If you couldn't already tell, my guest today is Bracha Goetz, and if you weren't already intrigued, Bracha has an amazing story, and we get to unpack it quite a bit today as we talk about her memoir throughout our conversation. She's also a prolific author of more than 40 books. She's a Harvard graduate and just a sweet spirit. In our conversation, we talk about her time at Harvard, some of the amazing people she met, and what her journey was like. We talk about her self-discovery journey, the many places it took her, as well as how she got into writing so many children's books and why that's just a big part of her life and her heart. We also dive into so much more. Her new memoir, titled Searching for God in the Garbage, is available now, and I can't stress this enough, highly recommend that you go and check it out because it is so good. Now, without further ado, here's my conversation with the amazing Bracha Goetz. Bracha, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you. And yeah, I said this before, but I really am excited about this conversation. I think that you've done a lot of amazing work, and we're going to get a chance to dive into some of them because you have quite a large library as an author.
Thank you.
But I like to start off each conversation with simply asking, how has your day been today? How are you doing today?
Oh, it's been a great day. Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Well, okay. I start off the morning with blessings. That's how it begins, that part of the guidelines I live by is like the first words out of my mouth are thank you. Thank you for another day of life.
I love that.
Yeah, it's great. And let's see, I had a wonderful breakfast. And I love to eat healthy foods that are nourishing for my body and my soul. And then I went to a class called Body Flow, where we kind of it's a combination of yoga and Tai Chi and Pilates, and we do it all to beautiful music. So that is such a spiritual experience too. I love it. I could dance the whole day. I just love it so much.
I love that.
Yeah.
That sounds like so much fun. Continue.
It is. I recommend it to anyone that loves to do this kind of thing. It's so great. And then let's see, I helped some people. I gave away some plans. People came and took some plans. And then I helped my son-in-law with a project he was working on. I answered some emails. And I listened to one of your past podcasts. That's what I did just before coming on here. And then I had lunch, and now here we are.
You've had a full day already. I love that for you.
I forgot to mention talking with my husband too. Yeah. But yeah. So everything, yeah, it's been wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. No, that sounds like such a wonderful day. I thank you for sharing that with me.
I want to thank you for asking that question. I've been on a lot of shows and nobody's ever asked me that question. And I think it's a brilliant question because what's a person actually doing with their time? That's how you know. It's not what the person says, it's what they're doing. You know what I mean? So you got it right by asking that question. Then the person shows who they really are by how they're spending their time. I love that.
And that really is a part of the heart of it. My heart in asking that question is to get to know who you are as my guest. The reason I'm doing, my podcasts or longer conversations because I genuinely want to get to know whoever it is I'm talking to. And I do find that to be a very good and vulnerable, if almost everyone so far has been really, really vulnerable and open with exactly what's been going on in their lives.
Yeah.
And it just breaks the ice, man. It puts the walls down and gets us to really feel like, we can be honest and just open with each other and really begin to share heart to heart and not just head to head.
I love it. I love it. And I want to start asking people that. I love it. It's so good. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we're off to a great start. Now you're a prolific author, of more than 40 books at this point, I believe. Best-selling author, and many of which are children's books, correct?
Right. Almost all of them. 40 children's books and just one memoir for adults. Right.
Yeah, which we're gonna dive into today. Oh, I'm looking forward to that. But I did want to find out, when did you first realize that writing was a passion of yours?
Well, I guess in third grade, I wrote a poem about how with a book, you can go anywhere. You can fly anywhere in the world. You could be anywhere. You could be anywhere in time, in physicality, anywhere. And they read that poem. I remember there was like a parent-teacher conference and they read it to all the parents. So like that was something. I think it was foreshadowing of where I was headed. And in high school, in the yearbook, they voted me class author. So that makes me think other people knew something about me that I didn't even realize. I must have always been into writing. Yeah.
I think it's an amazing thing when parents are able to celebrate their children's gifts, isn't it?
Yes. And it's what I find amazing about that is what you see children doing when they're young, what they do in their free time. That's a big, what is, like it's a sign of what they're going to be in their later lives. Where they are directed, what makes their soul shine as a child. That's what could make their soul shine as an adult. And you can see the signs really early in children. Right now, I have a lot of grandchildren, and I see it in my grandchildren. I see what they love to do whenever they have a free moment. That's what they're drawn to. Yeah.
That is beautiful. And as you said that, one of the thoughts that crossed my mind is how many people today are having a hard time discovering what makes their souls shine, because maybe it just wasn't celebrated or seen throughout their childhood. So it becomes the stumbling block almost, where they're kind of blinded to their own gifts.
Yes.
And you mentioned that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's so true. If a child has gone through trauma or abuse, what happens is their beautiful shining soul, it remains shining, but it gets covered up with garbage. Tons of garbage poured on top of it, so you can't see it shining. The only way is, I say that you need two things. you probably need therapeutic intervention, somebody to help you, give you support, the right support to remove all those layers of garbage that were thrown on top of it. And you also need always nourishment, to be nourishing, giving fuel to that soul inside of you, because it's still there.
Yeah.
It's infinitely resilient, but it's under tons of layers of protection that it had to do in order to survive if a child's been through trauma or abuse in childhood. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that because I'm a big advocate for therapy for those who need it. You know, I think
Yes.
it's one of the overlooked resources in our society that
Yes.
right now, hopefully from what it seems, as far as the trends are concerned, it looks like more and more people are becoming aware of its potential power in their lives, which is great. And something else you mentioned earlier, that you said that other people voted you class author, in high school. And I thought that was so great because I think it points out how sometimes other people can see our gifts clearer than we do.
So true.
And it's so
I was like,
important.
yeah. I was like, why are they voting me that? Like, I couldn't believe it, I thought it was really interesting. You got that right. And then also, it's the other way around too. As a child, if your gifts are not recognized, again, they just get covered over, but they're still there. They're waiting, they're latent and they're still available. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so just to jump into a question I did have for you around your books, like, is this desire to help create environments and help produce resources to help people shine, or help people help their children discover the shine inside of them in their soul, um is that a part of what inspired you to lean specifically into children's books, or was it something else?
Yes. I um I had a really sweet childhood, a very humble beginning in this little apartment in New York. And my parents were very sweet people, but they didn't have a spiritual understanding of life. So that's what was missing, a certain meaning I was searching for in my life. So
Yeah.
I try to write the books I wish I had as a child, books that from the very beginning, a child can understand that they look like they're physical beings, but their essence is spiritual. They're invisible. It's an invisible part of them, but it's the most essential core of them
Yeah.
is their soul, is their spirituality. And so that's what I do. So I try to help children gain skills of how to experience a joyful life early on,
Yeah.
so they don't have to play catch up the rest of their lives. That's what I feel. Children, it's so important to explain to children, give children guidelines for living. That's really what they're craving. And yeah, I have books about the prevention of abuse. I have books about eating healthy. I have books about teaching about disabilities, because children with disabilities are usually the loneliest children.
Yeah.
And so it teaches how to interact more effectively, basic guidelines, what to do, because children don't know. No one's ever explained it to them. All kinds of different topics, even swimming safely. Children love guidelines. That's what I discovered. It's a world where you can feel chaotic and lost, because I did.
Yeah.
So I want to help children know that there are real basic guidelines that you can develop trust in this world. Yeah.
And one of the topics that often come up in conversations these days for me, maybe it's just me, but I think I at least hopefully, I'm kind of hopeful that more and more people are talking about it, is the disservice that a lot of schools do to children, right? And you know what, actually, before that, just something I wanted to point out in everything you were saying, I think one of the other kind of accidental benefits of the work you do through the books that you write are, you give language to parents for how to talk about these things with their kids. And that is so important. that is so important. I can't imagine I'm not a parent yet. I have nieces and so on that I'll care for at times, but I can't imagine, just having these really big topics and sometimes difficult and complex ones to try to break down and, to think of my own words all the time. And so how amazing is it that there's someone out there in the form of Bracha creating these amazing books that helps to put language to things that I want my kids to hold on to.
You put it so beautifully. You expressed it better than I have. That's exactly right. It's hard to even breach certain subjects. Mm-hmm. So to make it easier for parents, especially about abuse, how to prevent children from being abused, the books make the discussion happen. When the parent is reading it with the child, then it brings up questions that would never come up otherwise. A child doesn't feel comfortable asking these questions, but in the context of reading the book together, it naturally comes out. Exactly. Yeah. That's what it's designed to do. And books are so amazing that way.
Aren't they?
It's an experience. And what people don't realize, what I've discovered, is that children, when you write a children's book, you are reaching the child, you're reaching the parent, you're reaching grandparents. You really reach every age level with your message because they're all reading it. It's an amazing thing. Yeah.
And I do hope you continue because that's just so powerful. What I was gonna say earlier, the topic that's often coming up now is the disservice that a lot of schools do to children because they're not teaching some of the basic things in terms of how to navigate life. And a lot of folks would argue that it's not their responsibility. Their job is to teach you math and science and so on. And I agree with that, I think. But we live in a society where a lot of parents find themselves not having the time to do it because they're working multiple jobs or whatever the case is. And so there's this massive gap that that's created in a lot of schools and a lot of kids' lives because there are certain topics that are just never touched on in school for various reasons. And I think a part of the work you do is fill that gap.
Yeah, what became one of the most popular courses at Harvard was Happiness 101. Everybody's looking for that. And it wasn't taught in kindergarten, or you know what I mean? And this is what people really need to focus on. How do you live a joyful life? Everybody's searching for it. Anxiety and depression are mass plagues now.
Yeah.
They are so widespread. People feel very lost. I totally relate because I too felt so lost in life. Is there any purpose? Is there anything to trust? That's why I had food addictions. Eating disordered behavior is a big sign of feeling out of control in life. Just feeling there is no control. What's the purpose of all this? That's what I was feeling more and more. And we really suffer from that. We are, there's an expression that we're drowning in information, but we are starving for wisdom. We are still starving for wisdom.
Wow. I love that. We're drowning in information, but we're starving for wisdom.
Yeah.
That is such a pointed description of what society is like right now.
Yes.
My goodness. How old were you, if you don't mind me asking, when you were navigating like food addiction and so on?
Yes, it was my late teens to early 20s. Yeah.
So around college?
Yeah, college was terrible. I had an awesome time, but at the same time, I was suffering in the prison of food addiction. And addiction is a prison. It's a horrible prison. It controls your whole life. And it becomes narrower and narrower until you're in solitary confinement. That's what an addiction is. Yeah. And basically, and then when I went on to medical school after Harvard, I was suffering at the worst.
Mm.
My first year of medical school, such bizarre behaviors, because that's what an addiction is. An addiction, you do everything in secret. Nobody knows what you're doing. You try to hide everything. So nobody was aware of all and the behaviors get more and more bizarre as the addiction goes on. So that was my first year of medical school, but I ended up had a 6-week break between my first and second year. I went to Israel that summer and I came back 10 years later. So yeah, my life changed radically. And I really discovered my roots. I found the heritage that had been tossed.
Yeah.
And I was able to finally nourish my starving soul. Yeah.
So I have to explore that a little bit with you because that is such a phenomenal story and journey that you've been on. What what was that transition like? So you go to Israel with the intention of, hey, I have a 6-week break. I kind of want to explore a little bit. At what point do you decide, I don't think I'm going back? like,
Yeah.
like what happened?
Yeah, it was wild. And you could imagine my parents flipped out here in America. Like, what in the world? They thought I joined a cult. And instead of joining a cult, I was just discovering my lost heritage. It was, it's really amazing, but it was scary for them. But for me, it wasn't even a hard decision. It looked
Yeah.
hard on the outside, but it wasn't, because living in that addiction, it was like a desperate need to fill the it's you have a bottomless pit.
Mhm.
The more you feel you feel the emptiness inside of you, the more desperately you try to fill it with externalities. You're just trying all the time, and the pit gets deeper and deeper, and the search gets more and more desperate. So basically, that summer I went there just to volunteer at Hadassah Hospital on the oncology ward. But meanwhile, I was searching for the purpose of life. That's really what it was about. It was interesting. I'm counseling patients that are dying and their relatives. And what I want is why? Why should we be alive? What's the purpose of all this? So I went and I found these schools where I could learn about these basics that I always wanted to, with other idealistic people that were also rediscovering their heritage, which I didn't know about. I that's what I was seeking. And the minute I found it, it was like, whoa, yay, this is it. And I was really, I had explored other things too, like, other religions. And I got a lot of truth out of other religions, but it wasn't a perfect fit for my soul.
Yeah.
So it was really awesome. And that's it. I ended up living there for 10 years, meeting my husband, who was on a similar journey to me, and having 5 of my 6 children while I lived there. Yeah.
Wow. And you left the medical program after, so you graduated Harvard, you go on to medical school, you leave the medical program. What do you do over there during this time, as far as making a living?
Okay. So my husband was making a living and I was doing editing and writing at home, but I was mainly a mother of small children for those years. Yeah.
No, that's wonderful. And,
Yeah.
a few of the things that you said, like while you were volunteering at this hospital, you were asking some of these really big questions. Why are we alive? Who are we? And, what are we
Yep.
supposed to be doing? You're discovering yourself. And these are some of these questions you were asking even when you were much younger. If I'm tracking your memoir correctly, you were asking that. So actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump into the memoir and then we'll circle back to the children's books because I have a few questions about those. But one of the entries, if you don't mind me reading it, this one's from March 8th, 1968. We'll come back to that. This is what you said. You said, "Dear Twilly," which we'll also talk about Twilly. I think that's really, really interesting. I often see someone in a dream drifting further and further away, saying, don't forget, remember. But believe it or not, I forgot what it is I'm supposed to remember. It feels like I'm looking for something. I wander through the streets, but after a while, I don't know what to do with myself. What I want most of all is to find who I really am. How old were you when you wrote that?
1969 it was.
68.
Oh, 68, I was 12.
So at 12 years old, you were asking these really big questions
Yeah,
of
that's
life.
when it started at age 12. My consciousness opened up. I got this new awareness of life. And I started asking, is this all there is? Like we get up every day, we go to work, we make money to buy food, to go to work, to live another day. What's it all for? What's the purpose of this whole thing?
Yeah.
So that's what it began at age 12. I started, the search began to find out the purpose. Yeah.
And it didn't stop there. Clearly it didn't stop there because, even through college, you were still navigating some of these. Um, Throughout the memoir, you were very vulnerable. I mean,
Yeah.
you talked about losing friends in high school to overdoses,
Yeah.
losing and finding yourself. And in one entry you shared, you said, I have lost myself under phoniness.
Yeah.
I'm trying to recover my feelings, but can't. What's so great anyway about finding who I am? Someday I'll die anyway. What if I die as a person who don't know who I am? I haven't had the time to think. I've been rushing around doing nothing lately. Real me, are you still in there? If you struggle to reach the goals you set for yourself, the good news is it's most likely not because you're lazy or that you lack discipline. Statistically speaking, you're most likely struggling to reach your goals because your life is out of balance. In 2017, the Harvard Business Review reported that the United States spends more than $190 billion with a B, billion dollars to address the physical and psychological effects of burnout in the average working professional. And these numbers are from before the pandemic, so who knows what it is now. The point is, anyone trying to reach a goal while navigating burnout, whether consciously or subconsciously, is not set up to succeed. This was my experience until I discovered the life balance approach to reaching your goals and changing your life. This approach to reaching your goals takes into account your life balance as you work towards your goals. Subsequently, it basically guarantees success for almost any goal you're trying to reach. And I know that is a big promise, but it is very much realistic and very much possible. In my best-selling book, Life Balance, I outlined the principles of this formula. And due to popular demand, the online course for the book is now available. In this course, I walk you through each and every principle individually and how to apply it to your life. It's a self-paced course, so you can take it on your own time and go through it as quickly or as slowly as you would like. Every purchase includes a digital copy of my book, Life Balance, the Life Balance workbook in PDF format, and the Life Balance planner, also in PDF format. For a limited time, you can purchase this course at 50% off when you use promo code PODCAST. To purchase this course today, visit paulwcroswell.com. Now let's get back to the episode.
Yeah. As a teenager, you're just trying to fit in and be cool.
Yeah.
That was really important to me. Again, as my awareness developed, I'm like, oh, wow, I'm like not cool at all. How do I become cool, And I tried, smoking with the other people, whatever, whatever made you seem cool in those teenage years, And yeah, I was trying hard, but I felt like I was losing myself doing that. Who was the real me underneath all that? But it's just so important, your peers during those years of adolescence and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And I won't read this one in full. It's a little bit longer, but you talked about when Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated, and you were reflecting on, why even try to do good? and you mentioned Dr. King and him also being assassinated, and all these people who are trying to help and try to make the world a better place, and you are questioning, why even bother to
Right.
try to do something good? Can you recall that season of life, that week, that month of hearing about the assassination or seeing it, or like what was life like for you around that time?
It, it was a really exciting time in history.
Yeah.
1968, 69, 70. Wow, things were really changing overnight. It was revolutionary. It was Woodstock. I love being a part of that whole revolution. I
Yeah.
was like I was like a flower child because I was at the younger end of it, but it was totally exciting. We were just like throwing off all the shackles and change was happening and
Yeah.
make love, not war, and it was also shocking, when those assassinations happened one after another.
Hmm.
I was actually there. I remember I was at the church there for the funeral, and yeah, it was like I remember that. It was later on, I don't know, in the memoir, I actually get to know Caroline Kennedy and let's see, the Moynahans, Rockefellers, like different people at Harvard that
Yeah.
were there, which was what I was, aiming towards. I felt like this is it. This is where I got to be. This is where like power is and decisions are made. And this is where the height of wisdom must be at Harvard. It's like the biggest thing. So when I started learning about everything, I worked hard and I got it into Harvard. And it was interesting to meet all those people because they're searching too.
Yeah.
It's not like they're it. I talk about this in the book about a garden party, exclusive garden party I got invited to, where all these famous people and they're looking beyond also for something more. Like there's really nothing up there where we're all striving to be. It's a mirage.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I got to see there's nothing really there. But at the same time, I felt, then where is there something? Where is real life? And that's what I finally was able to discover later on after Harvard. But I'm glad I had the opportunity to see that because many people waste a lot of time just trying to get to that mirage when there's
Absolutely.
really nothing to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the ability to see behind the curtain, so to speak,
Yes.
at such a young age must have been very, as much as it was a shocking, or a shock to your system kind of deal, like, oh my gosh, there's nothing behind here, and we've all been
Right.
striving to.
Right.
It must have also been somewhat freeing, because now it's like, well,
Yes.
I'm not worried about striving for that. I can release myself to whatever it is that, God or the universe or whoever reveals to me is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Brilliant, brilliantly expressed. Exactly. In that story, in the memoir, I'm skipping home. I'm jumping in the puddles because I was felt freed from that striving. I didn't have to do that anymore. I didn't know what I was striving for. And that eventually led to me getting actually sicker in terms of addictions. But for those moments, it was a freeing experience seeing this is not it. I got to
Yeah.
see that. Right.
So powerful. Man, I highly recommend that people get this memoir. It is such a beautiful journey of self-discovery and growth, and just coming into yourself. And I wanted to circle back to this because it's written in kind of a Dear Diary kind of format. So like Anne Frank, Diary of Anne Frank type deal. Um, was that a part of the inspiration for the structuring of it, the formatting? Yeah.
Exactly. I had just finished reading Diary of Anne Frank when I started this. That's what got me to start my diary. Exactly that. You are so on the ball. That's exactly what took me to do this. Yes.
Yeah. And you started one of the first entries started with Dear Diary, but then for the rest of them, it turned into Dear Twill or Dear Twilly, Twilly.
Yeah.
Can you talk me through that a little bit? Who is Twilly?
Yeah. Twilly is when I name my diary, it's short for Twilight. It's just
Okay.
a time of change. I knew I was changing so much, and that's what I was going to be describing in the diary, all the changes I was going through. Yeah.
And I think you captured them beautifully.
No,
This
thank
is just
you.
beautifully written. And if anyone's listening and they're wondering, man, can I hear more of this? You absolutely can. You can read it for yourself, and the link will be in the description of this episode. But we're not done yet. So let's dive in, shall we?
And
Oh, you were going to
thank you.
say something?
Thank you so much. I just want to say this is a new thing, but you know, um, there's about Anne Frank. There were so many children killed in the Holocaust, and there's been some speculation. We don't know for sure, but people have been saying that a bunch of us people like me, that were born later on, and that when searching for our roots, we may have been those souls reincarnated now, those children that never got to live full lives. And maybe that's why I was imbued with this feeling of what's my purpose here, this very strong need to know that, because we may actually be those souls from the Holocaust that didn't get to live full lives. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just a strange and interesting idea that I felt such a connection with Anne Frank and her diary. So, I always kind of wonder about that. Yeah.
No, that is a very interesting idea. And I absolutely believe. I mean, I don't know much about reincarnation and how it all works and everything, but I do believe that it's possible for us to develop and experience deep and kind of unexplainable connections
Right.
to people as we read and learn about their lives and begin to find some connecting points. We're just kind of like, man, this is a little more than coincidence. I think this might
Yes.
be for me specifically in a very special way.
Yes. The way it resonates.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So man, I really I love how you laid out the entire memoir, how open, how vulnerable. You lived through some really amazing just historical moments, that you share very unique perspective on. So I really do hope people take a moment to check this out, because it's just beautifully written and your journey is amazing. um I do want to jump back to the children's book, because I think there's so much there. One, there's 40 of them,
Mhm.
and we're not going to be able to discuss them all, but there are two that really caught my eye that I'd love for you to unpack a little bit. The first is Let's Stay Healthy. That's the title of that one, Let's Stay Healthy. And I thought, that's so good. Can you just unpack that? What was the heart behind that one?
Yeah, it's my newest book, actually. There's a bunch more books coming out soon, but this is my newest book out. And what happened is a mother called me up during the pandemic, and she said, please, you got to write a book about how to be healthy. She said, like, my children are eating junk all day. They're not exercising. They're not sleeping well. They need to know why. And even when I was an undergraduate at Harvard, I was taking courses at the Graduate School of Public Health and Harvard Medical School, because I love public health. So I love to explain why. Why is it important to eat healthy? Why is exercise important? Why do we need sleep? So that's what the book is about, really explaining the reason behind it. And if I'm all about the soul, but if we don't have we need healthy bodies for our souls to shine.
Yeah.
It's a prerequisite. We need them both, So this is about how to take care of our bodies. So, for instance, children are so used to junk. And
Hmm.
what we don't realize is that the processed sugar, it actually takes out the nutrients from our bones. It makes us weaker. And we need the opposite. We want to grow stronger bones, especially for children. Like type 2 diabetes is so widespread now among children. There's no need for that.
Wow.
It didn't It didn't used to be the case at all. But now the food, it's called the Standard American Diet. The acronym for it is SAD, Standard American Diet. It's very sad. It's
Yeah.
really sad
Yeah.
because there's over 60% is processed, ultra processed food in the Standard American Diet. When we were given such amazing natural foods to eat in this awesome garden that we were placed in.
Yeah.
And instead we have to process and control it and make all these things what's sweeter than a watermelon? What's sweeter than a date? Grapes. But instead we have to make these foods in a lab, or instead of an orange, which comes individually packaged with the peel holding in the juiciness for months. And inside are the seeds of infinity. It replicates into a tree, infinite amount of oranges. And you compare that to a orange flavored tangy taffy. An orange flavored tangy taffy does nothing good for you. And the sensation of pleasure, it lasts 2 seconds while it's on your tongue. And then it's just doing harmful things to your body. Yeah. And even the wrapper is garbage. It just pollutes the environment as opposed to an orange. It's the junk food is more like cigarettes and cocaine, has more in common with cigarettes and cocaine than it does with a natural food like an orange. Yeah.
No, you're 100% correct. And, again, these are big ideas that you are breaking down, so that children can understand the significance of them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And just the idea of talking about the importance of sleep and not just saying, oh, it's sleepy time, you need to go to sleep, but talking about the power of it and the benefits of it to your body. As an adult right now, I'm a life coach, among other things. And almost every single one of the clients I work with, it is literally pulling teeth to get them to understand and embrace the importance of sleep, of great quality sleep. It's amazing because adults don't understand the significance of it. And so, it would just be powerful if we can teach the upcoming generation the significance of it, so that won't be the case for them as they grow up.
Exactly. Instill in children these wonderful, joyful habits so they don't have to play catch up the whole rest of their lives. There's teenagers that have been reading this book, Let's Stay Healthy, and they've contacted me and they said, now I get why sleep is important. Like teenagers never want to go to sleep, but they see, I experimented like you recommended in the book. I experimented and I see how much joyful and more energy I have the next day if I got enough sleep the night before. It's such a difference, Test yourself and experiment and see how different you feel with enough sleep or not. Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes the world of difference. Test it out. I highly recommend that, but just want to let you know ahead of time, it makes the world of difference.
Yes.
So that's your most recent book, Let's Stay Healthy. And I think that that is extremely necessary. As a parent, I don't know why I wouldn't pick that up. And you're saying even teenagers are navigating it and learning from it, which is a pretty big deal. That's not a small thing. Teenagers reading, which is amazing, and then reading something that's actually super beneficial, which is also great.
Yes.
Another one of your books that caught my eye is titled "Let's Talk About Personal Privacy," and I thought, I when I saw that, and I thought to myself, I don't think. And maybe I'm just not in the children's book section often enough. I like to think that I am because I'm a big reader. My wife's a big reader. My sister is a big reader. And whenever we get the girls, my nieces, gifts, it's most of the times it's always books.
Wow.
Because they love to read. We love to read, and so every time I'm in the children's section, I don't think I've ever seen a title for a children's book. Like this one, Let's Talk About Personal Privacy, Would you unpack that a little bit for me?
Yeah, well, I'm not wild about the title. I thought it was too much of an adult title, but the publishers put that title in it. I had a different title, actually.
What was your title?
Oh, it was
if
private.
You don't mind me asking.
Yeah, my title was Private Places.
Okay.
Which I thought was more a children's kind of title. And I thought that title was too adult-like, but okay, I didn't really have a say in that final, the way it got published. So I agree with you. That's why you wouldn't see a title like that. But
I will say I haven't seen a topic quite like that either.
Okay, yeah. So it that's what it's about. That like we have control over who touches us. We need to be able to feel good about having that control and practice it. In the book, you actually start to practice it, so that this is a book specifically focused on the prevention of sexual abuse of children. Yeah. And that's what it's about, and about how, everybody has the right to protect their own body, and you have the right to say no, even if a person, and of course, this is how it happens. There's a lot of grooming that goes on. They give you gifts, they take you on trips, they give you an abnormal amount of attention. And then they ask you, do you mind if I put my arm around you or do this? And and a child doesn't feel comfortable saying no. Yeah. It's really important to discuss this ahead of time so that children are aware of what grooming is all about, so that they can avoid it. And children actually do avoid it from this book. I get calls from parents and emails just thanking me for saving their child's life. That's really what the book does. It's amazing. And the other book is Let's Stay Safe. It's in about, I think, over 130,000 homes already, where the children have learned how to be proactive, and if, God forbid, they have been abused, they know how to report it now. They know what to do. When they read this book, children actually start to divulge things to their parents they may never have said before, but then they feel comfortable doing it from reading that book together with their parents. So it's essential. These books are combating the abuse of children, and we just need more and more of that. The more educated children are about health and about abuse, the more that they can be protected. Like the advertising campaigns, for instance, back to junk food, are so widespread. Yeah. So this is a still small voice saying the opposite, to give them other information to combat that. They're being infiltrated with, eat these colorful junk foods and you'll have a happy time. And it may be that moment, but coming up in their lives, these things lead to disease. They're really not joyful substances. So that's what we're trying to combat. Yes.
You're combating diseases, you're combating trauma, right?
Yes.
And the need for therapeutic intervention potentially in someone's life. And like you said, these books are still small voices, because I used to work with teens and young adults, and I would always remind myself and my team that we are working against a stream of billion-dollar industries, and companies and organizations that have, millions of dollars in budgeting, just for our kids' attention. And we get this, smidget of time to try to make a difference in how they think and how they interact with all of that information. And I 100% agree. We need more. If we can multiply Bracha and create a million more of you, I think that'd be wonderful.
Same with you. I love what you're doing. This is so important. For almost 20 years, I coordinate a Big Brother, Big Sister program. So I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah. It was all about focusing on the strengths of the child. Don't focus on their problems. We're building their strengths. And that's what the books are about as well. The children have the strengths. It's in there. We have to build them up and build good habits, joyful habits early on.
Yeah. And maybe you've already said everything that can be said about this, but I do want to give you a more direct opportunity, if you were to speak directly to maybe a parent who's listening who has been wondering how to have, these conversations with their kids about, maybe they suspect something's happened to their child as far as abuse, or maybe they've been trying to get their kids, to understand why eating healthy is important for a happy and healthy life and a long life if they want to maintain life and, long term. um what would you say to a parent who's listening right now?
Well, the books are designed to make the conversation easier. It's just hard to bring up these things out of the air.
Yeah.
This way, what I love about it is you sit down, you're kind of cuddling. It's kind of a cozy setup. It's a loving setup to be exchanging. The book is like the venue that helps you to express it together and discuss the topic. Yeah, it's just a very delightful, easy way to do it, as opposed to like another thing would be watching a video together. But this is even more intimate of a connection between the two people.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that's 100% accurate. This is a very intimate way.
Exactly. It opens the conversation between the two of you. Right.
Yeah. Man, if you're listening and you're a parent and you suspect something has happened to your child, maybe they are afraid to speak up, and you've been struggling to find a way to create an avenue, I honestly don't know of a better way for you to go about that, because if you can force a child to sit in therapy, and if they don't trust that therapist or they don't feel safe, they still won't speak. But it's a whole different thing when you create language for them,
right,
and shared language between the two of you, that they feel safe, and an avenue and an atmosphere where they feel safe. um and honestly, I'm not sure how, if you're my viewer, take this with a grain of salt, if you're listening, but uh, I honestly do believe that there are a lot of adults who can benefit from reading a few of these books, who can
yeah,
who can genuinely and deeply benefit from just hearing. For example, you have permission to control who can and cannot touch you.
yes,
That is empowering language that I know for a fact there are some adults who've never heard that in their lives.
right.
And that's empowering. That is something I think is necessary for everyone to hear at some point in their lives. And if you didn't hear it as a child, there is zero shame in purchasing one of these books, and let it be your nightly reading, just as an encouragement to your inner child, right? As healing to your inner child. I think that'd be beautiful.
Yes, I say that too. You know how you take children for an annual checkup? I feel like the books need to be reread and reviewed, because as the children grow, they ask questions on different levels,
Yeah.
as they read the same material and they're understanding it on a whole different level. Exactly. That's the thing about books too. You keep them and you can return to them again and again. Yeah.
I honestly am genuinely in love with books. I have quite a bit here in my office, as you could probably
Yes.
see.
Beautiful.
and,
Beautiful.
and then I have a bunch in boxes in the garage because they can't all fit in here.
Wow.
But there's something beautiful. There's something, just lasting about a book. It's just a beautiful and powerful thing. Um, and I do have one more question for you, or two more, I think. The first is, do you have any upcoming projects or events that you're excited about?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I do presentations. I give a lot of presentations, but also we're publishing some new books soon, or coming out. One of the book is about that little voice in your head that's always telling you to do the wrong thing, or it's telling you to focus on what you're lacking in life. This is a natural thing. We all have it. And it tells you how to combat that voice. The first thing is recognize it. Go, oh, yeah, it's you. You're out to always make me think of what I'm lacking. The minute you do that, it loses its power. So a lot of I give like actual techniques for children. And of course, like you said, it's for adults as well, because we all need this. The more we get aware of it, the more we could overcome the self-destructive impulses that we all have. It's universal, and bring more joy into our life. Because what this book explains is that really that self-destructive impulse is intended for you to overcome it. Its purpose, it's a natural thing. It's built into us. And it's like, it's how we develop our muscles by pushing against it. That's how we develop our gratitude muscles and get them stronger and stronger, by pushing against that part of us that's whispering to focus on what we're lacking right now. Instead, to see all that we already have in our life. It's a totally different focus. And we gain that through the habit of exercising our gratitude muscles.
Yeah.
And what was the question? What else is coming up? So that's what's coming up next. And the other thing is that we're working on animation of some of my books too. That's another project that we're doing.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
That's so exciting. You must be so excited about that.
Yes, I love it. I really do. And my children are working on it. That's the amazing thing. They told me to stop getting my books published by regular publishers, because my youngest children became publishers now, and they are publishing my books, and they've got loads of creative ideas.
Yeah.
Let's Stay Healthy was the first book that they published. And now 3 more books are coming, and they're starting on the animation, and they're just filled with creativity, which I love. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. I think it's amazing that some of your kids are getting involved in creating these amazing books. That's such a beautiful thing. And I'm sure it must fill your heart up with joy.
It does. It really does.
So, and yeah, I just want to reiterate, again, if you're an adult listening to this, man, these books sound amazing. I want to check them out. I am a big fan of caring for your inner child. So if you're listening, you don't have children, you're like, I don't know, get a few for yourself. Your inner child would appreciate it, especially if you feel, when you were a child, you didn't necessarily get to express all of your childhood, playfulness. So, or safety expression. So I just check it out. Bracha, where can people find you? Your work, your books, or if they want to book you to do a presentation or speak, where can they find you?
Thank you so much. You've just been amazing. My children created this awesome website, which is, www.goetzbookshop.com, and Goetz is spelled that funny way, Goetz, and it's the goetzbookshop.com. You'll see all different things, everything, the books and presentations, and everything is there. And I just want to say, about a person buying it for their inner child, I'm sure they could find a child someplace that could benefit from the book too. And whoever you are, you can find a child that you could bring into your life and share the books with.
Yeah.
That could benefit not only for yourself, but help another child's soul to shine. Yeah.
I love that. Bracha, thank you so much for spending this time with me and sharing your story and just your power and all that you're putting out into the world. I really appreciate it.
Well, you are amazing. And I read about your terrific, awesome book. It sounds phenomenal. And I hope that so many people enjoy having you as a coach, because I've been so impressed by everything I've learned about you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Guys, that's it for this episode, you guys. I really hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. If you feel like you missed anything, go back and listen to it, because it's 100% worth it. All of Bracha's links will be linked in the description of this episode. The links to her bookshop, the links to her Amazon, and anything else that we discuss. The name of her memoir, by the way, if we didn't mention it before, is Searching for God in the Garbage. And we'll be linking to that as well in the description. So you'll be able to find all of this in the links. So be sure, if you want to just pause and go ahead and scroll through the links and navigate to the bookshop, the memoir, wherever you want to look, you can do that now. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, take care. That's it for today's episode. I truly hope you enjoyed the show. To learn more about today's guests, including the links and resources related to everything we discussed, visit the podcast page at paulwcroswell.com, where you can find the entire podcast archive, as well as information about my book titled Life Balance, as well as the Life Balance Planner, and much, much more. If you'd like to support the podcast, the easiest and most impactful thing that you can do is subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and on YouTube. Also, leaving a positive review or comment is also important and greatly appreciated. Sharing the show or your favorite episode with friends or on social media is, of course, awesome and very helpful. Finally, for podcast updates, special offers on the Life Balance Planner, online courses, and more, please subscribe to our newsletter. You can find a link to do so in the show notes.